Welcome back to Bengals on the Brain. I'm your host, Joe Goodberry, part of the Cincinnati Bengals Talk YouTube channel, where we look at everything Bengals from film to player evaluation, scouting, X's and O's, and just talk Bengals. If you have never joined us before, welcome. And everyone else, welcome back. It is the off season. What are we going to talk about? Who could we watch next? What is there interesting things to evaluate? What's left, right? We could do undrafted players, and we will talk about one of them today, just because he ends up appearing inadvertently, and I took the opportunity to use him as an example. But we will talk about a few things here before we lead into it. The film portion later, and give me about 4 or 5 minutes to talk, and then we'll get to rookie OTAs, where the rookies showed up to Paycor for the first time, went into the practice bubble, did some work with coaches for the first time, hands-on, getting that one-on-one. And it's nice because while you don't have a lot of time to work out with the team and do these things before the veterans show up, and really the offseason's just rolling at that point, but in that little bit of time, you get hyper-focused coaching. So you'll see Myles Murphy working with Marion Hobby, the defensive line coach, and normally he'd have to look at 15 or so guys, and you won't get the hands-on with just one player. You'll get that over the course of a career and a season and a training camp. But to have it in a one-day span or a one-practice span is rare. You don't typically get that. So it's a good thing to see. We will watch the film gathered by James Rapine and edited by Andrew Fox Miller, the guys that make this channel look so pretty. And when I saw it posted originally on YouTube, I was like, okay, this is interesting to watch, to see these players move for the first time while wearing orange and black, but also to see what the coaches were telling them and correcting them on. And then to see a few players, because the Bengals drafted 2 receivers, to watch them run the same route back-to-back was enlightening. I think it maybe solidified some of the things we thought, but also interesting to see. And so we'll watch that. We'll take that footage that James captured while he was at practice, and we'll break it down. And there's also, I should shout out Mike Petraglia and Dan Horde. I took a couple clips of theirs from Twitter and spliced them in there as well, because they got some of the same plays, just a different angle, and I thought it would help illustrate what I'm trying to show. So when we get there, we'll first start with Myles Murphy, go over his practice and his reps, and there was a lot of focus on him being the first pick, of course. See what he looked like. I won't go too far. We'll go with him, and then we'll look at the receivers and some of the other weapons and some of the other players, and that one to me is a little bit more fun because, like I said, we didn't do 2 players so far in Bengals on the Brain. We didn't do DJ Ivy. I figured we'll get to him at some point in the preseason. I don't know if he's a lock to make the team. The Bengals have done a lot to solidify the corner roster. He's got a battle to make it. So we didn't dive into him right after the draft. We also didn't watch film on Brad Robbins as a punter because he's a punter. I don't think that'd be very interesting. But we do get a clip from rookie camp, and I found a way to make it interesting, at least to myself, that I thought a few people would enjoy. So I included that, and we'll get our first look at Brad Robbins doing something other than punting the ball, which is strange for that position. But before we go too far, first clips here of Myles Murphy in a Bengals uniform getting coached by Marion Hobby. 2023 rookie minicamp for the Bengals, brought to you by Cincinnati Bengals Talk. We're going to focus this video on Myles Murphy, the Bengals' first-round pick out of Clemson, the defensive end. You see him working with Marion Hobby, getting adjustments in his stance. And this is something you see, a clap drill, right, where he's got him get in your stance first and then reach out and touch my hands. And you see when he does that, his balance, he falls backwards, meaning most of his weight and where his feet are angled, when he gets his hand off the ground to rush, he's going to first fall backwards. Hobby comes up and adjusts him to get him to lean forward and even slaps him on the butt and tells him to get that butt a little bit higher in the air. So you see the initial, his hip to shoulders are pretty even, and the bend in his knee leaves him with less power than you would like, less explosiveness. So once he adjusts him, and then you see Murphy get into his stance and get adjusted, Now you can see the angle from the hip to shoulders. He's now leaning forward. And look at the angle of his knee. It's more acute. And so now he can use that. So when his hand comes off the ground, his momentum is going to take him forward. And as he pushes with his legs and his feet, it's going to explode him forward. And this is Murphy running through the bags, working on hand movement, but also working on agility, changing direction, rushing around the corner, running the arc. Watch his ankle here. You see as it plants in the angle between his foot and his leg. That's called ankle flexion. You're looking for that in guys and pass rushers that can get around the corner, because you're really going to have to bend that ankle. Not something that you and I could really do well. And it helps you turn the corner when your toes are pointed in the direction you want to go. Here's another angle of it, and you'll see it again. And you see that ankle. See how much it flexes, and then it points in the direction, the toe points in the direction he wants to turn. But then the next foot comes down, and you see where it's pointed, and it's outward. So now his balance is going to go outward, his weight is going to go outward, and his next step, he stumbles a bit. His hand has to help him get around that corner. So good, but not great on that one. You'll see on the next few, this one right here, tremendous. Watch how he drops his weight, slides his foot to slow him down, and then cuts the corner. You're going to see the pellets fly up. His knee is almost touching the ground. This is great bend. This is great control of your athleticism and your weight. Foot hits the ground, toe is pointing around the arc, make a 90-degree angle around it. That foot's outside, but watch as the toe lifts, it actually turns. So he turned it as he was cutting. Really good coming around the right end there, rather than the last one was around the left end. And then we got some bag drills to finish off. Murphy, not much to see here if you haven't played football. And if you have, you've done this. You know what this is. But you're just touching the bags. Eyes are supposed to be up, and butt is supposed to be down. Bend at the knee, not at the waist as you go back and forth. Just very casual stuff that every football player has done. So, man, does he look good? He looks big, long, athletic. Everything that you would expect with a first-round pick in Myles Murphy. It's interesting to see him. I don't know what it is. When you put on the stripes, you get a little more optimistic. Even if you weren't big on any of these draft prospects pre-draft. Once they're drafted, once they're wearing the uniform, if you're like me, you're looking for the positives. You're looking for the hope that this person could develop into the player, the high-end player that we see or that you hope for. And see Murphy working with Hobby, who Hobby's gotten great production out of Trey Hendrickson. Hendrickson's had his best career years with the Bengals since signing him. I think Sam Hubbard last year was his best career year. I do think we're just about to see the peak, I guess, is the word I'm looking for, of Joseph Osai. Remember, he missed his rookie year. Flashes were there last year. He had a lot of big plays. Sure, the final play of the year didn't end the way I think anyone would have liked for him. But I wouldn't be surprised if year 3 for him is huge. And I even think Cam Sample came into his own last year. So the defensive ends, clearly under Hobby, are having their best years. I even think DJ Reader last year was having his best season and would have completely had he not gotten hurt. He still came back and was solid. But, man, the way he started was on a tear. He was completely dominant, a top 3 defensive tackle in the league. You look at a BJ Hill thing where he gets traded. The Giants, took Billy Price for him. Do I need to say more than that? And BJ Hill found himself a good career with the Bengals and got extended. Larry Ogunjobi took a 1-year deal with the Bengals, had a career year. Sort of. Yeah, he's had other flashy years before. But could have turned that into a big deal had he not have been injured. If you remember, he had that situation with the Bears. Anyways, my point that I'm trying to get to is when you see Hobby working with Myles Murphy and you see the slight correction on his stance and you go, yeah, that could really help him get off and explode. And there's different things they could have been working on. I am kind of guessing with that, but I do see an immediate change in what he's showing them, and especially you see Hobby grab his behind, slap his behind, and you can surmise what he's telling him there. And when you see the immediate adjustment by Murphy, because there are different ways you will set and stand and get in your stance, depending on the situation. If you're defending the run, if it's clearly 3rd and 9 and you're rushing around the arc, you're going to look a little different. I actually went back after I watched those clips of Murphy. I went back and looked at how Hubbard stands or gets in a stance and how Hendrickson gets in a stance. I felt confident that I knew that how their angle was, how their back angle is, how their knee angle is, how their feet are spaced, where their hands are, what moves first off the snap. Joseph Ossai looked at that too, and Cam Sample. So there is some slight variation, but you can see once he corrected him, he looked in line with the other guys that I went back and watched. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on, see if it can. Hobby may have looked at him and said, oh man, I can start with his stance, and he's going to be so much more explosive just off that and be a better pass rusher. But then you see him getting around the bags and cutting and arcing. And I wanted to point out the footwork a lot because when you see guys, and ankle flexion is huge. You should try and do it and record yourself and post it on social media. That'd be very funny to see how much your ankle can take, how much bend it can take before you fall. Because that's strength and flexibility, right? And balance and all of that. But you're turning the corner. You're like a cat on the carpet going around the corner as a pass rusher. The one guy that really struggled with that was Jordan Willis. If you remember, he tested really well. But when you watched him, his feet would plant, and he'd want to go that way, but his feet would be planting outwards. And it would take him so much longer to get around the arc in real football situations. His testing was good. But when you saw it on tape, you're like, yeah, he actually can't turn the corner at all. And so that's why you got to marry the tape and the evaluation and the testing, because little things like that help you look like a better athlete or be a better athlete or be more explosive or agile on the football field. And so it was good to see Murphy do that. And I thought he looked clearly better coming around right end than he did left end, where his footwork was perfect. So going on to the next guys here, this is a longer video now. We're going to look at receivers, Charlie Jones, Andrei Iosivas, and then we're going to see a little bit of Shedrick Jackson, the undrafted guy out of Auburn. Then we'll rotate. We will get a little bit of DJ Turner, and then end it with a fun one with Brad Robbins and what he's going to do most that is not punting. Number 15, Charlie Jones, working on a slant here, doing a good job starting inside, giving an outside release afterwards to try and get that corner to bail out, pushing off his back, using both hands in his route here, which is key, something you'll see with a lot of players. Advanced route runners will use their hands to help them get open. That is not a problem. Third step here, type slant. So the other one's like a 5-yard slant. This is a 1, 2, 3, just slant and cut. Make a nice catch behind your back there as you got to turn for a bad ball. Nice catch on the sideline here. Getting both feet in, I think so. At least a nice pluck with his hands away from his body. But let's take a closer look real quick. There's one hand if he's got it, and I think he does. Second hand, we really can't see where the ball is there. But, as fun as we can get and as close as we can get. Looks like a good grab. I love this catch also above his head. I like the route, too. It's just like a 10-yard dig or so. But he's got to give an outside, at least look, and then get back vertical. Make a nice cut, sink your hips, drop your hips, sit in a chair, make the cut. Make a nice grab that's high, land back on your feet without losing much speed, turn it up the field. It's a very good route. We'll see another angle too. They're basically showing him an outside shade press situation here. And so you want to get that corner off of you by attacking where he's weak or where he's trying to protect. You're going to the outside and then cutting upfield, getting back straight because you're running right at the safety here. Sit down. Look how he squats. His eyes are right at the safety if we're the safety. Good vantage point from Dan Horde here as Jones finishes that play. I believe we've got a speed out is the next one. And you want to stay vertical. You want to eat up the cushion, get right onto the corner. He's probably in off coverage here. And you're going to keep your shoulders square, eyes straight forward, and you're going to not make a cut, but you're almost going to speed into it. You actually see him start to cut with his left foot, which is really nice. And we're going to go right to Iosivas running the same route. And you're going to see a little bit of a difference here in the route running ability. So he's eating up the cushion, staying vertical. And then the first couple of things you'll see is that hand come out, and then he plants with his right foot. He's making this too sharp of a cut. That hand coming up, showing him slowing down. That's usually a key you can look for guys that really don't get in and out of their breaks and throttle down very easily. So same route again, we're running the dig, and you're going to see doesn't really threaten that outside as much. Going to get vertical now, Let's see if he can sit down and get into his route. I would say he leans a little bit there, more than Charlie Jones for sure. But again, we're talking about a guy who's 6'3", so his routes aren't going to be as clean. We're not going to be as harsh on him. And now here's the slant. Look how both of his legs spread, right? And then he goes outside, plants, cuts back in, looks for the ball. And I think this actually was a body catch, if I remember correctly. Let's see it here. It was. So I'd like to see him get him with his hands. You see him working with Brad Craigthorpe here, an assistant with the Bengals, and working on that release. And you see he wants him to, instead of spreading his legs and losing momentum here, he's going to step behind him, so a vertical set, and then go outside. So watch his left foot, his back foot, goes behind his right foot. Now he threatens outside. And that's how you get the corner to move out of the way. So just a little bit of fine-tuning for Iosivas is he might just be a vertical, big body guy. I love the way he tracks this ball over his shoulder. This is not an easy thing to do. NFL players can all do it, but I do like to see that because you see it at the combine a lot of times, and some guys really struggle with it. Shedrick Jackson is next, undrafted out of Auburn, and he is very fast, but you can tell he's not the route runner. Watch his shoulders, watch his hand come up. You see how he's throttling down, turning his hips. This is a hinge route, so he's going to cut inside. The ball's going to be thrown away. But the way he turns his feet, you can see he's planting horizontally. He does get low in it, but you can see he's definitely a rawer route runner than the other guys. You can just see it in balance, footwork, how you throttle down. Can you use your feet to throttle down, or do you need your hands? Do you need to turn your shoulders before you actually start to turn, like he does right there? He's really hunched over. You can see he's starting to lean. These are keys for corners and defensive backs to start breaking on your route before you actually do. We don't have much of Chase Brown to show. I got a route here where he's going to run a lot of this. He's just going to approach the linebacker, try and get him to plant his feet, go one way or the other, and then cut across his face and hopefully make a catch over the middle of the field. That's going to be something he does all the time. And then we got some bag drills, which if you've played football at any level, you've done this before. If not, what they're really looking for is you're not looking down at the bags, feet between the bags, obviously, but eyes are up. And then the guy holding the bag that he's approaching right now is either going to go left or right. And then you have to quickly adjust and make a jump cut, the Joe Mixon jump cut that he talked about, and then burst back upfield after you regain balance. Only one clip of DJ Turner in a press situation. You're going to see him, they're going to have him work on his hands. Just mimic it because there's no contact in this. So mimic your hands, go horizontal, and then one step back after you replace your feet. Turn your hips and run, open up. Now turn, look for the ball, locate it, track it real quick, try and make a play on the ball. And he almost does. Maybe if his hands were a little bit, or his arms were a little bit longer. We talked about this pre-draft. But now to Brad Robbins as a holder, because you're going to hold more than you actually punt the ball. So what are we looking at here as he's working directly with Darren Simmons on the snap, hold, transition? And you're going to see he's going to pick a spot. That's where his left hand goes. So he's pointing to it. His eyes look at the long snapper. He's going to look back at the kicker, confirm with the kicker that the kicker is ready. And when he's ready, head nod, lets the snapper know. He's going to look at him, watch the fist turn into a hand as he's going to catch it. His hand finally comes off of that spot, catches the ball cleanly, and he pauses for a second to show Darren Simmons. He's going to try and place it right back into that spot, which he does. Good job, Brad Robbins. That's what they're looking for as a holder. As expected, Charlie Jones looks like a really crisp, accurate, bursty route runner. Right? No wasted movements, man. And just the way he's so vertical, eyes forward, shoulders squared, sits in his seat, breaks down, goes. That's exactly how you want it to look. He looks very good. And even the way he drags his back foot on that 3-yard slant, if you go back to it, his back foot will drag on the ground to slow him down. Because as a receiver, you want to run as fast as you can. Say you're running an in route. We saw that with the release and then the in. You want to make that defensive back believe you're going to keep running straight, right? Because you want to get him to open up and back out of there so you have an easier cut. Or especially on the speed out. If it's off coverage, the corner's sitting and waiting for you. You got to burn it right to them as fast as possible and look like you're going to run past them in order for him to open up and go, and then you can cut on the speed out. When you watch Charlie Jones, he runs hard, full speed, straight, and then drags his back foot through the turf, and you see the pellets fly up. And the reason you drag that back foot is to slow yourself down, to cause friction, to cause that, as a way to slow yourself down, as other guys are flailing their hands or stomping too much. If your coach is telling you to and then cut against off coverage, that guy's going to sit there, see you start planning, unless you're going to run a double move, but he's going to see you start breaking down, and he's going to sit and wait. He doesn't believe you're going to run past him because your stride has changed. Charlie Jones will do it, and he'll drag that back foot, sit, and then cut, which is what you want, because then the corner can't adjust, and he doesn't know you're about to break it down right there. So that's why I highlighted Jackson and Iosivas' arm coming up, because that's a key also as a defensive back. When you see them needing any movements to, whether it's breaking down excessively before the break point, or if a hand flies up, anything you're using to help you turn the corner. You'll see it with pass rushers, will sometimes windmill as they're coming around the arc because they need the help with the balance. Same with receivers. If they throw the arm up first, they're probably going to start cutting. So different things like that, technique-wise. Charlie Jones looked perfect and great. Iosivas obviously has some room to grow there, and that's going to be something he's going to learn. We're going to see how much can he learn, how far can he go. That's the idea. Whenever you're getting a guy from Princeton, you got to expect he's going to get much better coaching than he's ever gotten. So the reason you highlight these things and even look at it, because it's just a couple clips. We shouldn't make sweeping evaluations on any of this stuff, but it does confirm that we thought with Charlie Jones is a really good route runner. But you don't make sweeping changes. What you do is you put a pin in it and you say, okay, let's see him again in camp. Let's see him again in minicamp. Let's see him again in preseason. And how do these things develop? And that's so you create a baseline. You see him, and then if you see it later and he's doing these things like that release, Iosivas, his release, instead of spreading his legs and losing all momentum, now you can get jammed where you're going to go. He gets more straight, takes an outside, then cuts in. Now, if he does that from here on out, great. Coaching worked. You digested it. Now you can apply it on the field. We're good. No need to, he gets a plus in his route running development there. If it continues to be an issue, being able to break down and change directions, that's when the guy doesn't develop. That's when he doesn't take the next step. And we've seen players do that in the past. So it's really just, okay, here's our first look at these guys. Now let's see how they go. So last year when we started the show, we started with the first preseason game. Yeah, had to be. So now we'll get to see and have a catalog of, let's look at minicamp tape, let's look at training camp tape, and then when we get to preseason, we'll be able to start to reference some of this and say, look, he has grown. He's gotten better. Don't make sweeping evaluations off this stuff. We've got thousands of snaps to go off of from college and then, or NFL tape if they're in the league already. So just worth noting. I thought it'd be interesting and fun to watch, and I found some value in it. If you did as well, maybe you should follow me on Twitter at Joe Goodberry, where this is kind of how it goes with me, especially in the off season. We're going to look at things, blow them up, evaluate anything we can about it, even if it's one clip that's randomly in a practice, and they'll look for more information and more clips and more things to break down, because that's what we like to do. And if you like to do that too, you know where to find me. Until next time.